Hey folks, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another review. This time, I'm going to be reviewing all these movies. The house films. Now, this one is talking about the very first one, and first I want to give a thank you to my friend Effrey for getting me this. This is the American edition of House and House 2. There's also an edition overseas that has House 1 through 4. I believe that's region free. Actually, I know it is region free. Real quickly, let me talk about this box set in America. Beautiful box set. Like the artwork on there. And I thought the films looked great on Blu-ray, but I'm not really an expert. I'm talking about picture quality. I thought it looked good to me. The restoration. But again, I'm not an expert, so don't take my word for it. I like that they have the original cover, simple but classic. But then they have this new cover as well. That's pretty decent. And this also includes House 2, which I'll show real quick. And, well, I'll show that when I talk about it. But it also has a book. It has a very thick hardcover book, which has much information on all four house films, as well as has pictures, behind the scenes, interviews. Let's see, some pictures on behind the scenes and the movie itself, as well as some little trinkets there. Actually, I'm going to hold that a little longer for this. And it tells about the making of the film, the release of the films, some of the posters from overseas, other countries. And this does go through all the house movies. And it also goes through, get a good picture of that one, House 2, which actually did have a comic book. You can see there. And then this also does talk about House 3, aka the horror show, which I enjoy that. I enjoy the first 3 House films. House 4, not so much, but the first 3 I enjoy. And let me get a good picture of, well, that's a shot that's not in the final project, but it's nice that they put that in this booklet. Getting a little info on each of the film. And yes, it does include House 4 as well, with William Katt as Roger Cobb, but this is a different Roger Cobb because in this movie he has a son, but in House 4 he has a daughter and all this other stuff because they put William Katt into it pretty much the last minute. And some of the stuff I barely remember being in the actual movie. This, which I'll talk about that when I get to it. But yeah, as for the features, talking about House 1, I like the features. The documentary is about an hour long, maybe a little over an hour long. And you get interviews with a lot of people. You get director Steve Miner, producer Sean S. Cunningham, screenwriter Ethan Wiley, story creator Fred Dekker, stars William Katt, Kay Lenz, and George Wendt. George Wendt, he only appears maybe 3 times throughout the documentary, but I mean it made sense. He didn't have a big role, but he says some nice things about the film. Composer Harry Manfredini, special makeup creature effects artist Barney Berman, Brian Wade, James Belohovic, Shannon Shea, Kirk Thatcher and Bill Sturgeon, special paintings artists Richard Hescott and William Stout, and stunt coordinator Kane Hodder. I think this was the first film he got to be a stunt coordinator. It also has some trailers, TV spots, has a making of from back in the day, has a still gallery, And if you're a fan of the film, this is definitely worth it. I thought the film looks great, has a very lengthy documentary, and it also has a commentary with Sean S. Cunningham, William Katt, Steve Miner, and Ethan Wiley all in the same room. So that was a good commentary, in my opinion, as well as great documentary. So it's definitely worth it for any fans of it. And I am a fan of House. House is a fun movie. It's a movie that, when I think about haunted house films, whenever I'm making a list, I forget it. And it's not because of the movie. It's just one of those things you just forget. There's really no conspiracy about it. But they said, well, what about House? I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. It is a great movie. Because House, I think because this film doesn't get talked about a lot. I mean, I love Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. There's, if you throw a rock and hit a movie that's a haunted house flick. But there's not a lot of haunted house films that are fun. And this is fun. Has a good sense of humor. Has horror to it. Fred Dekker, who, of course, would direct Night of the Creeps, The Monster Squad, he wrote this as, at first, he wanted to do sort of a Twilight Zone, the movie, anthology type, and this would be one story. And then he's like, well, let's make an entire film based on this, and it was a much darker, more serious, more grim movie with kind of a downbeat ending, and just much more just scary, serious, dark movie. And then his buddy Ethan Wiley saw this and said, let me work on it. And he made it much more of a fun, comedic horror comedy. And they showed it to Steve Miner. Now at this point, Steve Miner was working with, I think, Fred Dekker on Godzilla. Steve Miner and Fred Dekker was going to write. Steve Miner was going to direct a Godzilla movie in the 1980s because Steve Miner got the rights to Godzilla, and I think they wanted to do a 3D Godzilla movie because he had done. Steve Miner directed Friday the 13th on 3D, so he wanted to direct a Godzilla in 3D, which that would have been really cool to see what that would have been like. But then that didn't work out. Things fell through. Steve Miner read it because like, hey, what are your thoughts on the script? And he enjoyed it. And he's like, I want to direct this. So Steve Miner directed it. Ethan Wiley wrote it. Fred Dekker did get the credit to the story. And I think at first he was a bit upset that it became more of a horror comedy, but nowadays he's fine with it. And I'm glad it did because, again, most of the time when you see a haunted house film, it is a very serious, dour movie. And there are some great ones. George C. Scott's The Changeling I love. I wish that would get a Blu-ray in the U.S. Stanley Kubrick's The Shining I enjoy. Depending on how you look at it, you can look at Session 9 that way, or not. It depends. I actually enjoy the remake to House on Haunted Hill, which that doesn't have a Blu-ray. Which that deserves it, I think. I enjoy that remake, House on Haunted Hill, from 1999. And there's others I enjoy as well. You know, I don't mind The Conjuring. I like The Conjuring, The Conjuring 2. I reviewed those. I didn't mind them. But this is it has a fun sense of humor, but it tells a good story. It tells a good story about William Katt, who is a writer, and he was a horror writer. He has his fans, but now he wants to write a little personal account of Vietnam. And long story short, back in Vietnam, he was with his buddy, played by Richard Moll, from Night Court, from... Richard Moll's been in a lot of stuff. When you look at him, it's like, wow, he's been in that. He was in this film called The Dungeon Master. I think he was the bad guy in The Sword and the Sorcerer. I haven't seen that in forever. I remember liking it, but I haven't seen that forever. That's another movie that I don't think is on Blu-ray. And pretty much Richard Moll got cocky, went ahead, and he got shot. He wanted William Katt to kill him. And he's like, oh, I can't do it, I'll get you help. But then when he left, Richard Moll got taken. He's like, I'll get you back for this. You should have killed me. Now they don't take me back. You torture me, and who knows. So he's dealing with that. He's also dealing with the fact that his son went missing. He's on sort of the outs with his wife, who's now his ex-wife, who's a daytime soap opera actress. And now his aunt has committed suicide, and he goes to her house, which used to be his house, and or at least he grew up there, I should say. It's not he grew up there when he was a kid, and he decides to go in there and right from there. George Wendt from Cheers, he's the neighbor. He's a lot of fun. He has a good heart to him, and this film does a lot of things right. William Katt is very likable. Of course, he was in the TV show The Greatest American Hero, which I didn't watch much of that, especially growing up. But I really enjoyed William Katt in this. He was very likable. You felt really bad for this guy. And I thought they handled the characters well. Like, his wife is an ex, but she's not bitchy. She's not annoying. She's not... How dare you... She's not bitchy or anything. And the same with George Wendt. He's not the asshole neighbor or the typical annoying neighbor. He's William Katt's biggest fan, and there are moments where the film where it could have easily gone with, oh no, he's the asshole, he's the dickhead, or he's the guy he's got to deal with. But you get the fact that George Wendt really cares for this guy. There's a point where William Katt has a gun, and in most scripts you'd be like, oh my god, what'd he do? He killed someone. No, George Wendt calls the police because he thinks it's a suicide attempt, and he wants to make sure William Katt's alright. Well, at one point, William Katt's telling the story, and George Wendt steals this thing to call the ex-wife. And in most films, it'd be like, oh, well, he's doing this to get some payday or to get some blackmail. No, he's doing it because, listen, could you talk to him? Because, he's saying this stuff, and, I'm a bit worried about him. So it's like people being decent folks, which makes us like them more and root for them more. So like even a tiny role like George Wendt, I'm like, he's a likable character. At one point, William Katt gets pulled into this closet, and George Wendt's trying to help. By the time William Katt gets back, it's the next day, and George Wendt didn't leave. He didn't run away screaming. He stayed there. He got drunk. And he's, oh, it's you. But, I mean... So, I would say the script is very underrated. It does some really nice things. And also, most haunted house stories, it's about get the fuck out of Dodge or survive. But here, there's actual journey for the character, which is ultimately to save his son. Because he realizes his son has been trapped within the house and the dimensions of the house, and he's got to go in and save his kid. I thought, wow, that's cool. They gave, again, this sort of journey for this character, this journey that it's not just, oh, can I save my own ass? It's, in order to save someone else, let alone your own child. Once in a while, it's to maybe make a spirit rest in peace. But I thought, this is cool that it has a little adventure action quality to it as well. I thought that was very, very cool. And it definitely has a sense of humor to it. Like when George Wendt first meets William Katt, and George Wendt doesn't know who he is yet, and he goes, oh man, the woman that lived here, she was just a crab, and she was just this and that. I wouldn't be surprised if someone killed her. And William Katt, without missing a beat, going, she was my aunt. And without missing a beat, George Wendt goes, heart of gold, though. Yeah, I mean, she was great. Heart of gold. So, I mean, it's hard doing the dialogue. They could do a lot better than me. But it does a lot of nice visual touches. For example, when William Katt is typing and he sees sort of a vision of his kid, and of course he thinks it's not real. Who would? Because he's watching TV and then he sees his kid. He's like, okay, I'm losing it. So he takes the remote and turns the kid off like a TV, and it does turn off. But I thought that was an interesting visual effect. And you mix that with some, again, some fun comedy For example, this really, I thought, pretty cool looking creature comes out of the closet only at midnight. And he sees this, he gets it back in the closet, and the first thing he does, he buys a shitload of cameras and sets it up so he can take a picture of it. I thought that was a understandable but fun idea. And like he does this test before, like, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna run down, I'm gonna get outside, and then George Wendt goes, "Hey Raj, what are you doing?" And then one cat goes, "Me? Nothing." I thought there was some very fun, subtle humor to it. Like when George Wendt brings him snacks later, he goes, "Solitary is always best with someone else." And in the characters, they're human beings. And when I know people are tired of me talking about this movie, but the last horror film I really saw was Alien Covenant. I see these people consistently doing stupid stuff and not acting like actual human beings. Then I see a little low-budget movie like this, which has humor, horror, characters, good actors, all around great movie, and they didn't have a $90 to $100 million budget. They had like what, a $3 million budget at most. And people are like, well, why are you so nostalgic? Why would I not be when you have films like this to have fun and watch? And you get some really cool monsters. I mean, the monster that comes out of the closet, this woman who he thinks is his wife, and then it turns into... Actually, they should have some pictures of those things. Now that I think of it. Let's see. Should have a picture of that. Does it have a picture? Let me see. Well, sorry about this. Does it have a picture of the thing in the closet? Let me check real quick. Sort of a behind the scenes pic. I mean, this is one image from it. I like, the sculpture, practical effects. Then you have the woman that she rises up and she's this beast here. At one point, this female neighbor tricks him into being a babysitter for this little kid, and like this hand is on the kid. He's trying to get the hand off the kid. At another point, the kid gets dragged up a chimney, and it gets dragged by these really kind of creepy looking little fuckers. I saw it in here. Really creepy looking little motherfuckers. Yeah. These little creepy motherfuckers. And, they show them real quick, like, this, and like, what the fuck is that? And they're dragging the kid up the chimney, and he's saving the kid. You have the Richard Moll character coming back as a zombie, who, I love his design. This is a really cool design there. That's with William Katt's kid. That's really cool. And I thought this also this fun scene where this fish on the mantle comes alive and tries to attack Roger. And it's like flipping, almost as if it's ready to sing one of those fucking songs. And William Katt's character shoots it. It's silly, but I thought it was fun. I thought it was pretty fun. So yeah, fun mixed in with some clever stuff. At one point, you think he shot his wife, because when he shoots that creature, then it turns back to his wife. He's like, oh my god, I killed my wife. And then the cops show up. And the two cops are recognized. One is Stephen Williams, who would be in Jason Goes to Hell as Creighton Duke. He'd be on the X-Files as Mr. X. And then the other guy, I forget the actor's name, but if you watch Southern Comfort, the National Guards guy who's very religious, at one point puts a big cross on him, like paints a big cross on him, and he goes nuts later on. he's the other cop. I mean, oh, cool, I recognize those. That's cool. And then after that, you realize it really is a monster who's fucking with him, and he fucks it up, fucks up the monster. Then he's like, "What am I going to do with this monster?" Well, I gotta cut up the pieces and I gotta bury it. And the song plays like, "You're no good, baby, you're no good." It buries the body parts, and then like he's talking with this very beautiful looking neighbor, and she's the one that later tricks him into babysitting. Very good looking woman. It just has a great sense of, really cool practical monsters with a fun sense of humor. Harry Manfredini, everyone always talks about the Friday the 13th films that he did for a good reason. I enjoy the Friday the 13th films as well, but he did other scores. I think his score to Deep Star 6 is pretty good, and his score for this one fits very well too. And I thought it was a fun song to use in that scene, like I said, and like he's forced to babysit, that stuff happens. This fun part where he gets George Wendt to come by, and he knows he can't tell him the truth, so he goes, "In the closet, there's a raccoon." He's like, "Really?" He's like, "You see, he gets from the ceiling, and he comes in, he makes a nest in there. So when you wear these goggles and shoot this harpoon and get it right in the head, right in the head." Then he opens the door, the monster comes out, George Wendt gets scared, William Katt gets dragged in, and gets dragged into a jungle. And again, for a low budget, some really nice visual touches. For example, when he's trying to escape and the whole door is just this bright white light that he goes through, and now it's the next day, morning. There's another one where he finds out that portal maybe in the bathroom mirror, and he throws something through it, and it's pitch black. And there's this cool little shot where it's from the other side, like the pit of darkness, and you just see William Katt in this small window and light coming out. Or like when he's rappelling down this hole and like everything is pitch blackness. And then this creature, that makes me think of an Evil Dead movie, this creature. I'm not sure there's a picture of it. Kind of, right there. So this flying skull type of creature comes out and steals his shotgun and shoots the rope. He falls down to the water. I know in the original ending, there's supposed to be this big fight in this pool. Like the kid's in the pool, and he saves the kid in the pool and fights this monster. That's kind of the end of the movie, and they realized that didn't work. So, and this makes sense. They connected it to the Vietnam stuff that he was talking about, and saves the kid through that jungle. And then when they escape, they emerge out of the pool, and then that's when he has his final battle with Richard Moll's character. And I think the first time I saw it, I thought the plot was that Richard Moll possessed the house as revenge for what William Katt did. But watching the film again, I realized it's the house uses your fears against you, and so uses your imagination against you, and that's what it was doing. And of course, his guilt about what happened to his buddy. That's why it's the final baddie at the end, and really cool. And just a very satisfying, where it's almost as if Nancy in the original Nightmare on Elm Street, when Freddy doesn't have any power, and she's like, "I take back my power, I give you," which of course, if you watch the other films, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense looking back, but it works in the original movie anyway. And even before that, I like that William Katt, he's not a pushover. He's punching him, attacking him. At one point, throws Richard Moll's character, rips the arm off, and is hitting him with the arm, trying to protect his kid. Before that, dodging this gunfire, because Richard Moll's character has this like M60 machine gun. It's cool. Like, you get adventure, action aspect, along with your haunted house movie. I think that's really cool, and it's not typical in a haunted house film, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun. And he realizes that, this thing can't hurt him unless he allows it to. So he like pulls the grenade. So long, sucker, pushes him, gets his kid out of there, blows up this guy. The house is on fire. His ex arrives. She's fine. William Katt comes out with the kid. The kid goes to his mom. They turn and smile at him. And William Katt has his big smile. And a happy ending. No, oh shit, here's a thing for a sequel. Or a downbeat ending. It's a happy ending. And it works perfectly fine in this. It was the satisfying, it was the right way to end it. And again, you could go, well, he would later die in House 4, but that's not the same character because he has a daughter that's grown while here he has a son who's, and then a different wife. It's the same actor and same name, but it's not really the same character. So you can't even say that. I mean, you can say that, but I'm just, it's, no, they did it. Well, I talked about House 4, I'll mention it. But yeah, this is just, it's a fun, entertaining, clever, well-written movie with a good set of characters. You could call this a slow burn. It's not in 5 minutes, shit goes apeshit. Shit goes south. Well, except, you know, a grocery kid finding this old woman, William Katt's aunt, dead. But it's a slow burn, it's a build-up, but it's a build-up worth it because you get good writing, you get characters you care about, you have a good, fun sense of humor, and then it ratchets it up well. Here's some creatures, here's some monsters, here's some more fun, and here's, you know, some little bit of action, teeny bit of adventure, a happy ending, satisfying conclusion, a little bit of journey for the character, to conquer his fears, to conquer his guilt, and save his son. That's how you tell a story. And I think Ethan Wiley did a really good job with that. And Steve Miner, you know, definitely one of his best films. I know this was the most successful film for a while for New World Pictures until the next film Steve Miner did, Soul Man, with C. Thomas Howell. I think that actually became the most successful New World Pictures film before they closed down. Like, Soul Man actually made a decent amount of money. But so did this too. This made, for its $3 million budget, made maybe, I think, 19 million in the US and like 22 million worldwide or something like similar to that. So it made quite a bit of money, which is why a year after you got House 2, which I liked that as well. But I would say of the two, I like this more. I would say out of the House films, this is my favorite. Then The Horror Show, which I do enjoy that film. And then House 2, which I do enjoy. But yeah, this is definitely, I could call this a classic movie. It's not a film I grew up with much. I've seen it just a handful of times, but it was a lot of fun to watch this. I remember it being really good. And it's an 80s, it is an 80s classic. For a good reason. House. Very fun movie. And again, if you're a fan of these movies, if you do pick up the 4-disc of House, because again, I think it is region free, or if you can't, you pick the, or you just want the first two, you have this. But anyway, thanks for watching. Take care, and we will see you later. Bye-bye.